Alright, so this is a guide on how to manip Tailow into Abra, which is primarily useful for glitchless speedruns, as the reverse Tailow Abra order is a little bit faster than Abra Tailow, and this manip in general is a little bit faster than the existing one. It is also a little bit more punishing. I would not recommend this as your first manip. I would recommend the Abra into Tailow one, or just the Abra part of it, if that's what you're looking for. The guide that I have already made for that is linked below as the version 0.2 guide. It is a lot more in depth than this guide will be as well. It does not presume any prior knowledge. You should be able to follow that if you're a brand new runner. This one will presume prior knowledge. So even if you want to learn this manip, I'd watch that video first, just so you get used to certain terminologies and the way things work. For the benefit of you watching at home, this is flow timer. The only timer I'm actually going to be using here is the reverse timer, but just so you can see what I'm doing. These are the notes that are linked below in the description of the video. You will want these alongside what you're doing, as they have all of the pertinent information in them. They aren't complete on their own, though. You do need to watch this video that you're currently watching along with them to understand what any of it means. And I also will have my console on, and you can tell this is console because I'm going to press the button that shows it's console. So you can trust me that this does actually work and it's not just emulator. So, the manip starts in the same place as the old one did. You want to save here after talking to Devoncourt guy. The first part is a 4-frame Tailow window. They all find exactly the same Tailow. It's always level 6, which is an advantage for speedruns, because then you can teach fly into the empty slot quicker than you can teach it over a move if it was level 8. I've also included the 4 frames before and after the Tailow, so if you start hitting things that are on this list, you should be able to dial your offsets forwards or backwards to adjust. Speaking of offsets, I've included wireless adapter and no wireless adapter ones. I haven't tried the no wireless adapter ones, however, there's no reason they shouldn't at least work or be very close to what you're looking for. You should be able to dial in what you need from that offset, and you would have to dial in these ones if you were using the wireless adapter ones anyway, because everybody's audio setup is different and we all react to the sounds a different way. There are 4 timings in these offsets. The time that you're going to press continue after doing your soft reset, the time you go into the bag on the Tailow, the time you throw the great ball. I'll type that in because it's important, and type it in without caps lock on, and the time that you say no to nicknaming Tailow, not Abra. Man, these notes are great. Good job, me. And so that will be the time that you say no to nicknaming Tailow is what generates the Abra based upon the path that you're running. To show you the Tailow bit first, the path that you're going to want to do, I'm going to pop up a repel here so that you can at least see it, is once you've loaded in, you're going to run basically the most direct path possible. 2 tiles to walk there, 2 tiles to walk around Karen, and then you're going to run the entire way and the Tailow will appear on this tile. It's the most direct path we can do. You will always get past Karen, provided you've hit this 4-frame window. In fact, I don't know any of the surrounding frames that actually get caught by Karen afterward either. That Karen pass is not safe if you were to do that in an actual regular run, by the way. It only works because this is a manip. But yeah, that's really it for the Tailow. And then you will listen to flow timer for when to open the bag, when to throw the ball, great ball, and when not to nickname. The important parts of this is that you will need to mash relatively quickly for the Tailow encounter. Everything is about as soon as it can be reasonably for a human. You don't need to go crazy, but don't dilly-dally either, or you won't make the timing. And I will show you this just once. Also worth mentioning that the 2-frame early Tailow is exactly the same Tailow and will also work and extend perfectly fine. But it's worth mentioning that it's there because if you find that you hit the Tailow sometimes and then you hit some of those surrounding options, it might actually be that you're finding that 2-frame early Tailow rather than the 4-frame window of Tailows. And that's it. Tailow will go in. I believe this is a 16-frame window for the Tailow. It is pretty huge, so if it starts popping, adjust either your bag or your ball timing. Just your bag timing the opposite way that you would adjust the ball timing. Speak to if you're struggling, if you're always hitting the Tailow but you're struggling to catch it, give me a DM. I'll explain the best way to move it. It's a little bit complicated, but it shouldn't happen. You should just be able to hit it based upon my offsets if you adjust all of them equally. But yeah, that's the Tailow. Once you've caught Tailow, you need to mash through these text boxes as quickly as possible, and then time your B press here with flow timer when it beeps, and then we can extend this path into Abra. The Abra extension is the interesting bit. So in the notes, I've included the full path. My notation for this is lowercase letters you walk, uppercase letters you run. This looks a little bit horrifying, but the important bits are these first two. Everything afterwards is kind of optional, just to make the entire manip a little bit safer. If you're consistent at hitting flow timer windows, you probably don't need to worry about the rest. And the reason for that is because every path on these 4 frames, I know it looks like 8 Abras, but it is 8 Abras, it's on 4 frames, comes before that point in the path. You only need to learn past that if you want to extend if you want to make the window wider into a 5-frame window. I've included everything here for completion so that you can learn the longer path if you want. My high recommendation is to get good enough at the flow timer timing to only ever hit these ones. These guys are a lot longer in the path, which wastes time, and you'll see down below once we get to the catches that their catch timings are A, awkward, and B, a lot worse than everything else. These are just so bad. we don't like the Monties. But yeah, this is the path that you need to learn. I'll try and demonstrate this now. It might take me a couple of attempts to do it all the way through because I don't bother with the later sections. I only know well, I know all of it, but I only really care about the first bit because I never hit the longer ones. But let's try it. Alright, well, I hit it first try. You can use that you can go back and watch that again if you want to try and have a recording of it. But the important sections really are the first like 10 tiles. Of note, there's only 1 frame where you can get this Abra, but Zigzag. If you do only care about these latter 4 frames of Abras, you don't need to be perfect in that last section of movement. So you've got this first bit, and then here you're going to walk down 2, and then you're going to run down 1, run left 1, and walk up 1. Don't need to be perfect in that last section. If you only care about Zigzag, you can do the 2 runs and a walk. You can do 1 run and 2 walks, and I believe, but I haven't actually ever done it on console, you can do 1 run, 1 walk, 1 run, 1 walk, and it will all find Zigzag Abra. So don't worry about nailing that move, and it's not too difficult, but just don't worry about it. It's worth mentioning. If you do mess that section, not mess it up, but if you do the alternate movement, so if you walked here and ran 1 and did that, and it wasn't Zigzag, then you're not going to hit one of the Monties either. You will have broken those. But if you only care about these 4, it's worth mentioning. Might be a little bit easier for your movement. So there are 5 different Abras, all with stupid names, as is tradition at this point. Shorty's the earliest one, that's why he's called Shorty. Then there's Jeffrey, which is the most common one. Zigzag is the other good one. And then the half and full Monties are the really long ones that we want to avoid. And they are color-coded in the notes, if you're into that kind of thing. Shorty you will get here, after 6 tiles. Jeffrey you'll get 1 further down here. Zigzag will be there, and then the half and full Monties are most of the way around the path. You'll get very used to noticing which ones are which. So, on to actually catching them. I'm going to just scroll these up so we can see everything on one screen. These are your catch timings. Now, your bag timing is consistent amongst all of them except for Half Monty. Half Monty's a special little Abra, and we're going to get back to him later, but everything else will have the same bag timing. And that's once you have control in the menu, presumably you've mashed through the first text box quickly enough, once it comes up with your fight, bag, Pokemon, exit selection, the music will be going do, do, do. And on that 3rd note is where you need to go into the bag. If you've watched my previous video, the version 0.2 Abra Manip, or Chain Manip, sorry, this is 1 note earlier than that. If you're used to that manip, you need to adjust your timing one note backwards, because I tried to do this as quickly as possible. I'll give you a couple of examples now, just with random Pokemon, if my repel ever wears off. But this is probably the most important audio cue to know, because it's consistent amongst all of the ones that you want to hit. Nice, I found an Abra. Was when I went in. And this is the key timing that you need to be good at. I'm going to shut up here and let you listen to me do it. So that's the bag timing that you need to know. If it doesn't say bag here, that's the bag timing that you need to do. The ball timing is however many further notes there are to listen to, starting from an arbitrary point that I chose. Again, if you are used to the old chain manip guide, this has been adjusted forwards 1. So what was 1 on the old chain manip guide is now 2. The reason for that is because Jeffrey comes up straight away, and it seemed a bit bizarre to call the first note 0. I've adjusted them forwards 1. I'm going to try and count the notes as we go into the bag here, so you can hear what they sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the only ones that you need to know. So for an example again here, I'm going to show you Jeffrey's, which comes up the quickest. It's note 1. That's it. It's almost instant. It's not quite. If you were to mash, you'd go too early, but it's almost instant. The only other point of interest is that Shorty and Zigzag say 2.25. The only reason I did that is because there's no real good notation for not quite 2. You do need to go on beat 2, but you need to be slightly late. If you nail beat 2, you will just be early. But if you're as late as 3, you're well too late. It's kind of awkward. It's not. Once you do it a few times, you realise it's not that awkward. But I'll try and show you it here. One, 2, and then a little bit after 2. It's the best way to explain it. It's just a little bit after 2. Obviously, I'm not going to catch these because they're not manipped. But that's pretty much it. The only other weird case is Half Monty. If you're unfortunate enough to hit this, the catch window is so late, it's worth waiting in the main battle for the RNG to roll past a bit faster. And in this case, you want to go into the bag on beat 1, which is the same beat that you would throw the ball on Jeffrey. And then throw the ball on beat 8, which is a beat after you would throw the ball on Full Monty. I'll give you one quick example of this, because we're probably not going to hit this when I give you example attempts. So. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what that looks like. And this is exactly why I say, just avoid the Monties. They're there so that you've got an extra window of safety. You really don't want to ever hit these. Yeah, I caught the pooch. They're just terrible. They take so long because of how long the paths are. They take even longer with how long the YOLO balls are. Worth mentioning as well, the Abra catch windows are anything between 16 and 20 frames. So they're basically a third of a second, regardless of which one you hit. They are enormous. If you find that you're getting all the way to one of these Abras regularly and then missing the ball, or the ball shakes and breaks or breaks immediately, just adjust your timing forwards and backwards until you find it. It's literally, you can adjust it by thirds of a second until you find the point where you need to be. Because while I've given you these music cues, the audio cues, they aren't going to be a perfect representation of what you need to do. I am hearing the game audio through a monitor that's directly hooked up to my GameCube, so it's about as instant as I can get it. It's a low latency monitor as well. I don't know if that applies to audio. Anyway, if you were to, for instance, listen to game audio through your OBS, there's a layer of delay there, which may delay how you need to react to the audio. You may need to go earlier, you may even need to go later if my monitor isn't that quick at getting the audio out. You need to adjust these kind of things yourself. But that's basically the whole premise of it. I'm just going to do a few attempts now so you can use them as reference, and I'll speak through certain elements of why or what these are and why I've done what I've done. Very important to throw the great ball at the bird. If you throw the Pokeball, probably not going to work. Most of the frames don't work with the Pokeball. So that's Jeffrey. This is the earliest ball. Now I'm going to aim kind of earlier, because Jeffrey is like 4 of the final 5 Abras. So I want to aim earlier now and try and hit some of the ones that we haven't seen yet. Say 90% of the time you're going to see Jeffrey or Shorty, which are just the best ones, and very occasionally Zigzag, and you just don't want to see the Monties. But I'm going to deliberately aim early here in the hopes that we see something different. Oh, Jeffrey again. He's a classic. I also think Jeffrey's the only female Abra of them all, so it makes his name extra funny. Let's go again. Shorty. You at least get to see a different one here. So hopefully we can see Zigzag or one of the Monties soon, but whatever the next one is, I'll probably do that as the last one. Because 99% of the time you're going to be seeing Shorty or Jeffrey if you do this Manip properly. And Zigzag is a random extension that you throw the ball in exactly the same way as Shorty, so... All of my inputs were slightly late there. There's a chance this pops. Okay. See, the window's so wide that you can know that you messed it up slightly and still get away with it. Jeffrey again. Yeah, these guys are just classics. That might be too late. Be a good example if it does pop. The windows are just huge. It's really difficult to mess up the YOLO balls in this Manip. The windows are just enormous. I'm going to go very deliberately early here in the hopes that we see it Monty. And if not, then you can at least appreciate how rare it is to see these naff ones if you do the Manip well. This is a Manip that you really need to spend some time with and make sure that your offsets are well set. But it will reward you greatly with very quick Abras every time if you have the patience for it. should be early. I messed up. Okay, so well, that's a good example of me messing it up. I'm so not used to the movement for the longer paths because you just don't ever have to do it if you're good enough at this. I'll give it one more go. We'll see what we can hit. That example wasn't very useful outside of a Tailow example. That was just me being bad at movement. I think I went in the bag a bit too early there. Again, got away with it. If it was too early, it would just pop immediately. That's not going to be early enough. I'm just going to see something like Jeffrey again. Okay, well, that's all your examples. Just get good enough at this to always hit Jeffrey or Shorty, and occasionally Zigzag is my high recommendation. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Discord or Twitter. I'm always happy to answer. Thanks for watching.